Really? One. All right, YouTube, we are back and we're going to start with some advanced Wing Chun training. And what I mean by advanced Wing Chun training is we're going back to the basics. Everything you hear in Wing Chun is always stripping back to that, the daily decrease, and always going back to the beginning. Jin Young, I share his philosophy on something, which was great. The reason that I get along with Syed, Clint, Sean, Jin Young is because everybody thinks outside the box and they take their Wing Chun training to the next level, which is starting to piece it together on their own. So, you know, I mean, when I'm talking to Clint, you know, he's saying things that I can think but I can't articulate. Same thing with Syed, same thing with Jin. That's why we all get along very well. I agree with Jin when he talks about, you've heard me say in other videos, if you look at the first form, the first one we do is we define center fighting line, and then it's that punch. The punch is the first thing that we do, and that's our Wing Chun. Jin talks about the fact that the Wing Chun forms, in his opinion, are taught backwards. You know, why would we go all the way to the most advanced techniques when we are just trying to end that fight with the most basic thing in the world, which is the punch? And that's paraphrasing. He goes into a lot more detail than it. Go to his YouTube channel to get clarification on that. So what I wanted to talk about was a little bit of footwork. My friend Martin Seck, who does Kempo and Wing Chun, I'm going to put his link at the bottom of this, was asking me about footwork, and on the balls of the feet do we shift, on the heels of the feet. When it comes down to shifting or anything else, like I said, in Wing Chun, we're taught, you know, shift on the heels of your feet. Heels of your feet. You know, in other arts, we're taught shift on the balls of your feet, JKD and all that. And the reason we don't shift on the balls of our feet in Wing Chun is it raises your center of gravity. Well, you don't shift on the heels of your feet either, because if Tony gives me pressure as I shift on the heels of my feet, it really takes no force to knock me back. You know, there's a saying in Wing Chun, when we were kids, you shift on your heels, or your balls of your feet. When you train Wing Chun, you shift on your heels. When you're in a fight, just shift. If you actually concern yourself with staying on all the points of your feet, all 9 points of your feet, and you shift with torque, you're going to be a lot more rooted in the ground. Okay, and other people they'll throw out there for you to wind up studying. Look at Ed Cruz and Ken Weingart of Winnie City Wing Chun, and they go into the stance like crazy. Their stance is a lot more mobile than mine. Mine is, I'm taking my hip flexors and digging them both down into the ground. I'm forming a tripod here so that when I do shift and punch and there's an energy coming in, I have both my hips going back into somebody. So when it comes down to shifting, Martin, honestly, this is a shift in Wing Chun, and this is a shift in Wing Chun. If you start to dig apart your Wing Chun training, and you look at Chum Q, seeking the bridge, it does not mean that we are learning, you know, these movements to step in unison with our hand movements. So if Tony throws a punch, we are learning how to bridge the gap. We are seeking the bridge. Chum Q means seeking the bridge between the first form, which was a stationary, no lower body movement, and the second form, which is putting in movement. So you're seeking the bridge. If you look at Chum Q after our first, you know, section of the double lancao and elbows, you stop at 45 degrees. Your feet go one way, hips go one way, shoulders go one way, and your waist continues. And then you're learning to rise and sink and all these movements. Some people just go 1, 2, 3, and then 1, 2, 3. You'll see me in my form, I continue with my waist 1, 2, 3. So you're learning the separation. I show people there's no wrinkles in my shirt, and then I turn. Now there's wrinkles in my shirt, and that separates waist from hips. Okay? So this is a shift or a turn. You'll hear some people go, turn your horse. Turn your horse is the idea that you got a 2-ton animal in between your legs. You got to turn that animal. Turn that animal. That's a lot of torque and a lot of power. If in the first form we're projecting that energy going down, and I turn, my energy is still going down. That's the tripod I'm always focusing on keeping. That requires both hips going down in the center. So if I punch and Tony punches and I pick it up bong sao and I shift completely, and Jin talks about this, you know, if I have one hip going in and Tony keeps coming in with that energy, I can't stop him. Again, I can't stop him. Force in, because one hip is off. Now the other hip, if I put that up underneath him, I have a better chance. It's going into my my glute and my hamstring, and I have to dig into him now. That's why shifting parallel for me does not work. Shifting and stepping are not mutually exclusive. That's a step and a shift. Put them at the same time. If Tony punches and I step and I shift, now he pushes in, I have going push in, I have that support now. Now both my hips are going into him. They're digging and focusing right into him. This is facing. Okay? Facing is your hips going into your enemy. You see my center line's going that way, but my hips are going that way. Hips are facing him. My center line's going that way. Okay, these are things you have to explore. Right now, you can barely see it, but my right heel's up off the ground. I don't have my heel into the ground and my hips are digging into him because I can't hold that support. But if I put hips going into him, stay upper body relaxed, and he pushes in, now I have that better recovery. Okay? You hear me rip on other lineages, okay, all the time. Well, I'll start to tell you what other lineages actually make a lot of sense too. So I don't like the William Chung lineage. But one of the best things that the William Chung lineage points out is that your weapons have got to be the same distance all the time. It's one of the best things he points out. When I was a cop and I taught, firearms defensive tactics, this stance here is defensive, plus it shortens up your weapons. You can stand like this because your weapons are now the same distance, and you can drop a leg back at any time. So when you start to explore shifting, facing, turning your horse, and footwork, keep in mind your feet stay flat, and your hips have always got to point in there. So there's training, shifting, 180 or 80 degrees, 180 degrees, this way and this way, pivoting forward, staying focused. That's a shift. That's a shift with your feet still going forward. Facing is not upper body only. Tony punches, I'm facing into him. Facing is punch, I have my hips facing into him. As long as my weapons can both reach, I'm allowed to give play then and do whatever I need to do. Okay? So this is one of the first footwork and facing conjunction that you need to start exploring in Wing Chun. And it's all advanced Wing Chun, which if you strip away the garbage, is going back to the very beginning and following the first form. Your first form tells you, you're in this stance, project both those hips energies going down. Your weapons are the same length. There's nothing fancy here. It's all first form, and it's all the idea of hips and facing. So footwork, where do you feel your feet? If you want a really, really detailed video, go check out the Windy City Wing Chun. They will break down that first form stance. Again, Ed's is a little bit more different than mine. Mine is less mobile than his. He is, from what it looks like, because I'm not him and I'm not in his shoes, he's more light on his feet. I am dug down in because I can appreciate the value of staying in this tight space, and I want to be able to project that force back into somebody. All right, so I don't like to move back, move aside. Once I'm in, I stay in, and I want to move my enemy back. All right, that's shifting, that's turning your horse, staying on your feet, and that's facing, going in there. See you in the next video. All right, what I forgot to mention in the first part of the video was the fact that when we talk about that stance and the internal energy, do you guys ever see on YouTube, you watch like the older Chinese masters that will sit there and they'll take a line of 20 guys that'll come in and slowly, Tony's got his hands here, and I get into my Yuji Kim Yong Ma stance. And we talk about the fact that I'm taking the pressure down and he's building it up, and I'm bringing it up into him, I'm adjusting my stance, and then boom, I'm finding my feet. And you can find on Clint Cloyce's YouTube page, Sean McGuire talks about putting the front balls of your feet and then the heels of your feet and then pressure buildup. And then they'll have 20 guys behind him doing it. Okay, that's great for pressure, but the only thing I wanted to add on this was keep in mind that's not a real fight. If you look at what's out there as the boxers and the MMA guys, they're not coming in to slowly build this pressure, and you fight it. They're coming in to just hit you and then leave. Get in and out, get in and out. So this is just a part 2 of this really fast. There's training and application. Like I said before, remember, my view is for the 21st century type of fighting, and I don't want to be in a bong style here and be, oh, I feel this. And all this pressure, and I'm putting both my hips in there, and I can take all this pressure, because it's not going to be there. He's going to punch, and I got to be able to hit in right away, because it's instantaneously. Cool? Yep. No more gum?
No more gum.
All right. See you in the next video.